As soon as I had to let go of being in charge of the image, completely resented that. I was like, let me get the pictures, like somebody else deal with the actors. I was always a creative kid. Like it was clear for me that I was going to end up doing something creative. The whole technical side, it was really liberating to realize that I could, learn stuff because I grew up being told, don't touch that, you'll break it, or let your brother do that.
I can relate so much because I also been told as a kid that, you're a little princess, you're not supposed to.
Once I realized, oh, all you have to do is kind of read the manual. A light meter is not that complicated an instrument. It quickly became like, I want to make movies.
You're very active. You're like, I have a dream, I'm going for it. That is your passion, you burn for it, and you will do anything to get that.
And I've been told no on jobs, like back in the early 2000s. I've had producers tell me, sorry, we can't hire you. We already have another department head who's female. We can't have too many women. Like, I've heard that nowadays. This is like insanity. They would get sued.
Thank you so much for being here, Petra.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're so lucky. I know you're very, very busy, award-winning cinematographer, Petra Korner, but you've been all over the world. We're so excited to have you. We just shortly want to ask our audiences, those who are listening or watching, please, please, please hit subscribe. We really need it. It helps us continue inviting huge, gorgeous, amazing creatives like Petra. So we would really appreciate it. Thank you. But Petra, back to you immediately. Ding. When we were talking before, you talked about your first dream of the film industry was stunt woman, which I think is so cool. I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've heard. I'm like, yes, why not? What I want to ask you is like, do you see a through line between that dream of a stunt woman, like you're throwing yourself down staircases, woman, like, girl, what? Like if I were your mom, I would have been like, what did she do? No, please. Just want to be a ballerina or something. Like, don't throw yourself down staircases.
That was not in the cards.
But do you see a through line between your, that dream and then the way you moved through the film industry later on?
I mean, it's a nice metaphor, throwing myself down something that I had no idea would await me at the bottom, or whether I would, survive it.
Exactly.
Maybe in that sense. But I mean, the stuntman dream, I'm saying stuntman because I didn't know there was such a term as stunt woman at the time. And I was a total tomboy, and I was always flattered if people thought I was a boy. So I wanted to be a stuntman. And I just thought it was a cool profession, and I did a bit of acting and just got to know the different roles and the departments. And while I did notice the guys lighting and doing camera and stuff like that, and the director obviously, so I thought the coolest job was the person who was my stunt double. I was like, that's way cooler than what I'm doing.
They are pretty cool, guys. Shout out
They
to
are
all the
pretty
stunt
cool.
men and stunt women out there.
And it's funny because nowadays I'm doing a lot of, I get hired for a lot of action stuff. So obviously we always have really big and good stunt departments. And but I'm very happy I didn't choose that profession, and it didn't survive my childhood. That dream, it quickly became like, I want to make movies. It was this kind of abstract thing that I just wanted to make movies. I didn't really have the director pinpointed. It was just like, I want to be a filmmaker. It became that as a teenager. So I pursued that very, with very, very driven. And I knew that that I couldn't do it where I grew up. I didn't know anyone in the film industry. The Austrian film industry felt very small to me, and I wanted to do big stuff and, amazing looking stuff. And I wanted to, I always kind of noticed the difference between a European film and the Hollywood film. And I was like, okay, I like the European content. I like how they're doing it. Like, I love their storytelling and their guts, but I want to do it on that scale of the Hollywood version. So it was, yeah.
And did you have anyone in your family that was in any
No,
way?
I mean, I have to credit my father a little bit because he was always like a crazy world traveler, and he's like an art collector. So he always, he traveled to Sudan, to Afghanistan, to all these places, and would like go with his backpack loaded full of film, Super 8 film, and I don't know how many hundred rolls of film, and he would come back and do these elaborate photo albums, and he would edit his Super 8 like travel films, just
Wow.
for himself and his friends. He never like showed them anywhere, but he has amazing footage where he would like sit in the evening and splice with the little moviola splicer, and hot splice with Super 8 films, and I was like, huh. I like the smell of the glue, and I like the whole like, of the film, and so yeah. So obviously it was something like that, and then he gave me my first camera, and then of course I inherited his Super 8 camera, and so yeah. I mean, but he was never like he had no idea about the film industry, or nobody in Austria had any idea about the film industry in the 80s.
But he
Like it
definitely
was
was an independent filmmaker. To be very honest, he was. I mean, in his own world, but he
very true in
was.
his own world, like self-taught. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so, yeah, I always, and I was always a creative kid. Like it was clear for me that I was going to end up doing something creative, whether I was drawing or making stuff, and the whole technical side, it was really liberating to realize that I could, learn stuff, because I grew up being told, don't touch that, you'll break it, or let your brother do that, or that's too complicated for you, kind of thing. Like, so once I realized, oh, all you have to do is kind of read the manual and play with
So
it a
true.
little and take it apart and stuff.
That is so
A light
true.
meter is not that complicated an instrument, or a manual camera. It's like stuff that you can actually teach yourself.
Oh
So,
God, I love that. Guys, you only have to
Yeah.
read the manual. I don't know what the
yeah.
big deal is about.
And nowadays you don't even have to read the manual. I have a dyslexic kid who just watches a YouTube video and he learns everything. It's like
Fair.
Fair. Continue on that topic. I can relate so much because I also been told as a kid that, you're a little princess, you're not supposed to this, and this. And
yeah.
as you shared with us, that actually probably one of the reasons that led to you first in the industry. You said you were physically overperforming to earn the respect of the other team members who were predominantly male, of course, in that time. So, it was pretty radical already that you wanted to be, a stuntman or stuntwoman. And then you wanted to go even further. You want to become camera operator or DP, which
Well,
is
no, a camera
also,
operator I never wanted to become. That was
yeah,
never. I was always more in the, like
mm-hmm,
I'm not an operating cinematographer. Like I do it if I have to,
mm-hmm,
or sometimes like if there's a really, like intuitive shot that's maybe handheld or something, or where my operator just isn't getting it right, or I can't communicate it properly, then I'll take over. But usually I
mm-hmm,
don't operate camera. It's not.
mm-hmm.
It's like one of the many duties of a cinematographer. I think one of the many departments. I'm more about lighting and concept and storytelling, and definitely more from the lighting side. Um,
My
yeah.
bad.
No, no, don't worry.
Becoming a DOP, right? So that is something that was also kind of not unheard of, but it was very rare. And
It was rare, yeah. I mean, it was funny because at NYU at the time, like most kids, it was I went to NYU Tisch, which was a fantastic film department. But most people there wanted to become directors, and you kind of dabbled in all of the different, specifications. Like, you would learn a bit of, editing, and you would learn a bit of directing the actors, but you would pretty much learn the whole craft. And as soon as I, had to let go of being in charge of the image, I completely resented that. I was like, let me get the pictures, like somebody else deal with the actors.
who cares about
I
actors?
didn't want to. You had to crew on other people's films, and all of a sudden you had to let somebody else. I was always used to like directing and writing, and also, at that time, yes, operating the camera and, being in charge of the visuals. And I didn't want to, I figured like there's no one I trust more than myself. But on the other things, yes, I'm sure there's someone who's better with the actors, or I'm sure there's someone better, writing the scripts and doing the production design. But that was something. And then also, being in cinematography class was just like eye-opening that, how you could actually get there, because until then it had been trial and error on how to get the image to be powerful and not just look like a student film. That for me was like, I wanted to quantify it in order to be able to repeat it. Because you have all these happy accidents when you point the camera everywhere, and all of a sudden one shot's gorgeous and the other one's not. What's the difference? What did I do wrong? Why does this
Continuity.
translate the mood that I had in my head and the other one doesn't? And so that for me was the whole thrilling part of it. And yeah.
That's
And
fascinating.
you mentioned that you had to win respect of other like male team members, or
Yeah, I mean that came
the whole
later.
thing.
In film school, I was immediately embraced as the cinematographer chick, because I was, first of all, one of very few people who actually want to be a cinematographer, and second of all, I was always, like, I think just personality wise, like let's go get shit done kind of person. So I would, like grab the cases and, the tripod and the thing and and I was like, let's go, like, oh, you're too slow. Give me, And so they were like, oh, she's strong. And then I was like, yeah, I'm strong. I guess I'm strong. Yeah, I never realized I'm strong, but yeah, I'm strong. And then I, for example, I knew how to use a light meter, and everyone was like, oh, the light meter. So complicated. And I was like, no, it's not, and then it was just all of a sudden, whenever there was something technical, people would come to me and be like, Petra, can you figure this out? Or why is this not working? Or how do I do this? And I just always figured it out. And that was also new to me, like I kind of grew into that role of like, oh, I'm technical, I guess. I'm strong, I guess. Okay, that's cool. And I make pretty pictures that can actually tell a story. And so yeah, so at NYU, like everybody asked me to shoot their movies, so I got so much more out of it than, let's say, somebody who went there for directing, because they only did a certain amount of films, and I did everybody's film essentially, And it was funny because in my not in my year, 1 year behind me was Reed Morano, who's also a female cinematographer, who's also directing now, but I remember she gaffed for me once, and there was like, I was like, oh, there's another girl who wants to be a cinematographer. How odd. And then when I went to grad school in Los Angeles years later, the film program was, we did have a couple of women. Like, they were very ahead of their time. They wanted to, they were totally open to admitting women, and they were saying like, they looked at the applications like at the reels, kind of, not only colorblind, but like also like sex blind, like they just wanted to judge the work. And I always thought that was the best. I never enjoyed being hired or like going into an interview being like, oh, we definitely, for this story, we want a female cinematographer. And I'd be like, oh. Hire me because of my work, because I'm the best. Exactly. Don't hire me because I'm the best of the women. I want to be the best person for the job, regardless of man, woman, anything, like I don't believe in this like binary. I just want to be a cinematographer.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to tell you just quickly that the program that I did, it was like fully female stack. We had like barely 2 or 3 guys, and it was like they were, all of them were pretty much much younger than I was. And it wasn't even surprising to them, that they were all like, and it was so healing for me, because I grew up in the world also, like that. You have to prove your worth, you had to prove your place. And they were all like 20 something, like completely unaware of all of this bullshit. It made me so happy at some point.
Yeah,
that
it's
I realized
a very
that
different
they don't
world
have
now.
that narrative in their head. It was just, amazing.
I mean, statistics, there's still a long way to go in the field of cinematography. We still have insane statistics if you think of it, especially the higher you go, in big productions, in large productions, being like, now that I also do television, like I was the lead DP on Shadow and Bone season 2, and that was over 100 million. And the execs took me into the room, and they were like, "This is the first time we give such a big show to a woman." And I was like, "Oh, about time."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
okay, what do you want me to cut the cake? Like, yeah, great, okay, yeah, you should. I mean,
Good
why
for
not?
you guys.
So it's like,
That's
yeah.
yeah. But that's, Petra, with your work, which I've seen, is like every frame is a painting. It is gorgeous. So you're very, very talented, as we know and everyone knows. And I think your story, everything is you're very clear on. I'm not going to operate. I want the image. I want the light. I want the right, frame. I want that is your passion. You burn for it, and you will do anything to get that. Even accepting not being hired, somewhere because they don't have a toilet for women. And you're like, I'll just find a way in there. All that what you've told us. There's also this beautiful story about how you then allowed yourself to apply for AFI. And I would love for you to tell us the story about how your brother entered that, assisted you. Well, not assisted you in a way, but he did.
He gave me the push
He
I
gave you
needed.
this
Yeah, it
beautiful,
was.
gentle push, which we're all now so happy did that, and that you then really took the step because you're very
A kick in
active.
the ass.
He gave you the kick in the ass, but the thing is, you do that yourself too. You're very active. You're like, I have a dream, I'm going for it. Da da da. So do tell us about that story. It's beautiful.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to rewind a little. So after NYU, I had a working permit for New York for just 1 year, or for the US for just 1 year, in my field, and I used that as best as I could. Like I worked for Aerie, like in the largest rental house in New York, and I crewed a bunch, and that was the story, by the way, with the women's toilet. that
You
I
can also
wanted to
tell
work in
that
the
because I think that's amazing.
that I wanted to work in the lighting department at CSC, and they told me, sorry, I mean, you're qualified, but no, we can't take you because first of all, you have to be really strong. I was like, huh, hello, I can lift heavier than any of these guys, which probably wasn't true, but like I definitely was trying way harder, and by the end I could. And the second one was like, and plus we can't hire you, we don't have a female toilet, and it's code in New York, like you need a toilet for your employees. And I thought that was so, it was just so wrong. And it was so outrageous. If you think about it now, it would be so illegal to say something like that, or to discriminate based on that. It would be the opposite, so they were like, we don't have to build, and they actually said it to my face. And I've been told no on jobs, like back in the early 2000s. I've had producers tell me, sorry, we can't hire you, we already have another department head who's female, we can't have too many women. Like, it would be too much drama, or like it's too risky, or sorry, this is a really physically demanding job, we can't hire a woman. Like, I've heard that nowadays. This is like insanity. They would get sued.
They
But
wouldn't.
yeah, I mean,
Nobody
I
would
had all
dare.
of that. Nobody would dare. So back to AFI. So eventually, at the end of that wonderful year in New York City, or at the end of my 5 years, I had to leave the US, and so I decided to move to Paris, which, I was a big fan of French film, and I figured, like, they have a good film industry, they make tons of movies. I'm just gonna work my way up there, or I'm just gonna, like, enter the film industry there. And then I realized the big difference between the American mentality, and the old school European mentality of, like, if you're young, be quiet and watch and learn, which in a way is good. I'm all for watching and learning, but I felt like I had paid my dues, and I had learned, very actively, and very, like, I've been working my ass off, and I was ready for a chance to actually put that into practice and be hired as a DP. Whereas in Paris, they made it very clear that I was going to get treated like shit, working my way up as a bottom feeder, like, very slowly. And by the time I had a white beard, maybe I would get a chance. And it was all very, very male and very chauvinistic. And it was just, there was a lot of ageism going on, which is why today I always, like, try not to be in both directions. Obviously, now I'm facing it a little bit the other way, like I'm starting to be older than other candidates who are, like the hip ones right now. But it's mostly that I'm trying to, when I hire somebody in a leadership position and they look really young, I don't automatically discredit them.
That's
Like I
beautiful.
do like giving young people a chance. And so yeah, Paris, I worked as an assistant, always got treated terrible. Um, Nobody would hire me in lighting. I was always in the camera department, which bored me to death. Um, and Yeah, it was just I was shooting a bunch of short films, but I could see myself getting nowhere. I was like, why did I go to New York? Why did I, fight through the industry there? Why did I go to the hardest film school ever? Like, I could have just stayed in Europe and done this. Like, I know so much more. I can bring so much more to the table. I have so many ideas. I'm so good at this. Like, why doesn't nobody want to see that? And I was just I felt stuck. I loved Paris, but I felt like my career was not going to work out the way I had imagined it, which was like, and so my brother came to Paris and visited me, and I told him about all that. And oh, sorry, and I had just to feel better about myself. There was always this film school, it's like dangled as the ultimate golden carrot in front of, anyone who wants to be a cinematographer. It's AFI, which is the American Film Institute Conservatory, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. And their cinematography program is like consistently rated as the number one in the world.
Yeah, one of the best.
And all my heroes went there. And it's just, they take such few applicants. There's all these people who want to go there, and they take very few because that's the beauty of the program. It's a conservatory, it's not a university per se. So I applied just for the hell of it, and I got in. Shocker. So when they actually wanted to fly me to LA, or they wanted me to fly to LA to, meet with the head of the cinematography department, that's like the last step in the application process. I didn't want to go because I was like, I can't afford it anyways. I just pretty much applied to see if I'm still good, like if I could actually do this. And my brother was like, "Well, I think you should go." And I was like, "There's no way, I'm already in so much debt from undergrad, and I hadn't paid any of it back. I was barely paying my rent, and living like a 20-something-year-old." And he was like, "Well, you're already in debt, like what difference does it make if you don't think you can enter the industry anytime soon in Paris, then it's actually a good investment if it makes you jump all these steps, and if it fast forwards that unpleasant portion, and you actually get a true chance of something that you actually always wanted." He was like, "I never heard you talk about French film. I always heard you talk about going to the US and working in Hollywood." Um, so yeah, so he gave me that kick, and thank God I did it, because it literally it jump started my career, and after AFI was just like a very wild, crazy, and sudden, move up, and I couldn't have been luckier. And I mean, I still had to work damn hard for it, but but it was a lot of luck involved, and it's just Los Angeles is the place to be. Sadly, it's not my favorite city in the world. I would have much rather, stayed on the East Coast and or somewhere in beautiful Europe. But unfortunately, it is Los Angeles that you have to kind of bide your time if you want to work in Hollywood, like at least for a couple of years. So can't be avoided. And it is a lovely place.
Necessary harm.
It is, yeah.
The way you talk about it, it's already like the whole story, and then it takes even more interesting turns along the way. What I want to ask you about is how your first feature came about, and how did you save it? Because it was about to be shot on digital. And,
exactly. It was
some
at a
magic
time
that you pulled saved it from this.
It was at a time
disaster.
where digital, it was kind of all over. It was the buzz of like digital is going to replace film. And I was always a very analog person. I was never interested in television. At the time, television was a whole different animal, and it was, very different cinematographers were working in television, and they switched to digital video way earlier. They had always shot on video, depending. Um, and I was always like a film buff and very snobby about that, being like, I will always only shoot on film. I was not interested in the digital discussion. I was like, as long as it doesn't look anywhere near as good, why on earth should I shoot that if I can shoot this? I was like, this is stupid. So I was going down that route, and I was working kind of on whatever, whenever I had time off. I was volunteering actually at Mole Richardson which is, a big lighting manufacturer, like an old school Hollywood. Like every time you see the big old tungsten lights that have this kind of reddish pink color, that's a Mole Richardson light. So they have big studios in Hollywood, and I worked there to kind of assist the cinematographers that were doing their tests there. So I would do their lighting diagrams, or run the cable for them, or the power distribution, or like little things like that. And when they were testing the new film stocks that Kodak brought out that year, the new Vision stocks, it was a novelty stock that hadn't hit the market yet. So all the big ASC guys were coming in and testing it, and Kodak had supplied masses of it. And by the end of those tests, it was a couple of days of testing, they had boxes and boxes of it left over. And so at the end, they were like, "Oh, Petra, you worked so hard. Why don't you take the film home?"
Hell
And
yeah.
so I took this film, and I was like, okay. So I had interviewed for this independent film, shooting in Mexico with a Mexican director and a Mexican producer and an American co-producer, Florida based. Very random. I got that job through, like, I knew there was an opening because I had worked in the grip department on some non-union feature, and the gaffer really liked the job I was doing. And that when he learned that I had graduated from AFI, or that I had just graduated from AFI, he was like, "Oh, so you're actually a cinematographer?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And so he was like, "I'll put your name forward." And then next thing you know, I was like, "Yeah, I speak Spanish." My Spanish was pretty mediocre at the time, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm fluent, sure." and and I had traveled a lot, so and I had good ideas, and I put together this. At the time, all the reference presentations were still, like big things that you would put together on paper. Like I remember always flying with my big portfolio, like
Wow.
where you would turn the page with the director. And so I got that job, but they wanted to shoot digital video. They were like, "We don't have it in our budget to shoot film." And I was like, "Oh, but I can help." Like the labs liked me, Kodak liked me, and they were like, "We still can't make it happen. It would be too complicated shipping it back and forth, because we would have a lab in the US, and like just too much hassle." And I was so convinced to change that, because I knew it would look like crap, and it would also, like, it never gets taken seriously when it's just not shot in good quality. I mean, standards were still way higher than they are now, in a way, at the time, because audiences had been so used to seeing analog projected 35 millimeter. So all of a sudden, when HDV came along, or the early days of, HD, it was awful. The cameras were awful. It was really like, if you look at the early stuff, it's just, oh my God, it's unwatchable. And it doesn't age, So, um, then I traded in that film stock, all these factory rolls, because it wasn't enough to shoot a whole feature film on it. It was enough to shoot maybe a third of a feature film on it. And I went to, at the time, Hollywood was full of short end places. There were like trading places where you could bring in factory sealed film stock, and they would trade it for larger quantities, like exponentially larger quantities of short ends. The shorter your short end, the more you would get. Obviously, with the ramification that you had to reload all the time. And I was like, okay, I'll just get a really fast loader, and we'll just reload all the time, but we can shoot it on film.
Wow.
And so we did. So we shot on Super 16, and the director is grateful to this very day that I turned the production around and convinced everyone to go with it. Um, I mean, yeah, so that was my first feature. And then that very quickly, I got a second feature in Panama. And then actually, within that first year after AFI, I also scored my first like proper union movie in the US in New York, which was from like the director who I shot our AFI thesis for, John Levine, who's a wonderful, like comedic director working very successfully in Hollywood. Um, he um, he wanted me to shoot this movie for him, and he had written it himself, and he had gotten Ben Kingsley attached and some other really fun people, and it was a great script, and so it was just at the time where I signed with my agency, and they managed to get me into the union just in time, straight as a DP, like so that I could actually take the job and do this. And that essentially catapulted my career. The Wagner did.
It did, right? Because that where we're going here now is Sundance.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
guys win. I mean, you're not just at Sundance, which everyone is like, oh my God, we're just in. And we're like, that is enough. Like, obviously we want to win, but, oh my God. But you guys win. And that, like, as you're saying, catapults you, like, into another sphere.
And
Like, you're
even
just...
before, while I was still shooting it, while they were just kind of shopping it around, there was already buzz about the movie and how it looked, because I shot it with a very, heavy look. Like the director wanted this like hazy, summery, vintagey feeling. So I shot with very old lenses. Um, there only like were two at the time that existed in actual, retrofitted to be shot, so that you could shoot it with film cameras. Now it's a whole world of vintage lenses. It's like since digital took over, but I shot, Super 35 with that, and it was like it wasn't hip yet, so there was a lot of buzz about it, and so my agent was able to sell me to a larger production right after that. So that was essentially double the budget and had like exponentially the star power, because we had a bunch of Academy Award winners and just like a lot of names on that movie. And I got that movie while I was still shooting the Wagner. So the day we
Wow.
wrapped on the Wagner, I had to step on a plane from New York and fly to LA and start prep that very same day. I was in the production office.
Okay, so we can say here, which is the truth, Petra, that you are a name. You were one of them. I know you're talking about everyone else, but you are. And you're very, like, really fast, you become one, because you're just, sorry, I have to say this, you're fucking hardworking. You don't give up. You find, obviously, solutions where others don't know where, like the lenses and the, shooting on film, even with hardly any budget and all of that, which is amazing. And the question is, like, for me now, is because this is you being famous. You're famous. Okay. And a lot of us have, like, we have this other view of famous people. And what is interesting would be for me now, because you're being flown in, you're in this chauffeurs, you know what I mean? You're being picked up, you're in this beautiful hotels, you have all this package of all that everyone else thinks is amazing. Did it change in any way how you relate or see, the industry or how you work? Or did it just make you even, work even harder?
I think youth comes with a lot of cockiness and a lot of, you don't think about things in the long term a lot. I was very fortunate to have an agency who always, tried to keep the focus on the long term, because at the time I thought, a couple movies down, I thought this was going to last forever at that level. I was sure that within 10 years I would have an Academy Award. Like there was no doubt in my head, or at least a nomination, like I was like, um, and a lot of people in my entourage at the time, they now do have a bunch of Oscars sitting on their shelf. It wasn't an unattainable goal by any means. It's that circle. Once you're in the studio system and once you have good representation and you're doing a good job, um, that life throws you curveballs, that's not something on your radar when you're just barely 30 and you're very successful. You know, there's success and then life happens. And so, yeah, it's not like I'm devastated about where I am in my career right now. I'm still, you know, comfortably making a living shooting, you know, nice stuff that I can choose, and I'm still very fortunate, but I cannot exercise my profession in any way close to the way I would like to be exercising my profession, because I'm also a single mother to two kids. Like a very single mother, you know, not like a single mother who gets the weekends off, but like 100% mother. And yeah, kids was just the curveball. The curveball was kids and raising them all by myself. That was something that I could never have predicted how difficult that was going to be, and how many compromises and concessions I would have to make to just survive that. And so yeah, so now I live in Europe, just because it's easier and nicer to raise children here, at least for me.
Yeah.
And but like, I'm counting my days. My kids are teenagers now, so I'm a few short years away from
You're
being
like,
able to dive back in fully. And you know, I'm lucky that I still have all these, you know, amazing connections and opportunities, and I'm staying on the ball, and I'm trying to do nicely selected larger scale things in the meantime that just kind of fit the schedule, you know, like I always try to. I can only take things that shoot for only about 6 months maximum right now, because I can't justify being away from my kids for longer. um so, and then I always take a big chunk of time off to be there and be 100% mom. So it's a very spotty resume, and it's definitely not easy in an industry that likes to hire the next, you know, the next thing, the person who's so hot right now gets one job after the other one. But the second you turn down two jobs or three jobs, you're not getting called again from those people. They're gonna go and find the next hot thing. So it's always tricky, but I always think, you know, quality prevails and being a good
Yes.
person prevails. Like, what I love about working in kind of the higher, you know, echelons of production is that you can choose to work with good people who are not only excellent at their job, but who are wonderful human beings. You know, I think the luxury to be able to hire your own crew and to actually have some leverage there to say, no, I know you're recommending that person, but I'm not going to go there. Or, sorry, I would like to I would like my department to be a little bit more diverse. I can do these things. Um, that's a great thing. And just that there's no room for assholes in our industry anymore. I think it's so refreshing. I mean, obviously
I
there's still a lot of
love it.
stressed people
That's so
working, you
refreshing
know.
to hear that, because like all we hear
Yes.
is how many are people who are maybe great, you know, nobody is
Yeah,
questioning
yeah, but
that,
there's so
but
many
they're
talented
toxic.
people who are good at their jobs. Like, why would you take the ones that are not nice or that
Exactly.
are not good team players? You know, it's just like I try to be my very best for the director I work with, because I know they're vulnerable people under a lot of pressure who've worked very hard to get their movie made or to get this stab at, you know, they're not like us cinematographers. We work all the time. You know, we're constantly employed actually. Directors, they have to wait for years in between, and they have all this creative energy, you know, that's, which is also why it's so great, you know, to have somebody who hasn't worked in a year or two because they've promoted their other thing, or they tried to get some financing off the ground, or God knows why, you know, and then they just have all this creative energy that wants to come out. And that's wonderful, I think, you know, and to be able to help these people and be their, you know, best ally and not have any ego in the way is so crucial.
Yes.
Yes,
There's
that's
no room for
beautiful
ego. Yeah.
example. And on that point, I guess, you know, your career kind of defies the industry prefers narrative, and that the way that you shaped it yourself and the direction that you took early on. What kind of example do you hope to set for younger filmmakers, and in particular women, who wants to follow your path? What do you want them maybe to?
I mean, follow my path. I hope nobody follows my path. There must be an easier way. No, I
Do
think
not follow me.
Don't.
no, I mean, the one thing I do tell every woman who I mentor is like, do not have children until you have a career set up, like until you have a body of work that's recognizable, until you have a good agency that will be loyal and will not drop you when you have to cancel a job or when you have to fly back home or when you know your kid gets sick and the nanny doesn't show up. Like, do make sure you have a body of work that's recognizable and that will be recognizable in a couple of years from now, you know, like, because if you're starting out and you just get your first indie movies and then you have a kid, you're fucked. I mean, people have done it, but it's really hard, you know, it's exponentially harder than hard. And you just, it's almost, I mean, nothing's impossible. I can't wait to have the next girl on the podcast who is going to be like, I have triplets. And
Yeah, I have like
I
5
I
children.
signed my agent while I was breastfeeding. I mean,
Oh my
nothing
God, I
is
love it.
impossible.
I love that.
And mothers are always like, they find ingenious ways to do things, you know.
So
But
true.
it's, if I can give one piece of advice, it's like literally sort your career out first because you will need money to raise a child. And things are easier with money. It's just as simple as that. I've been so fucking poor. I've cleaned houses. I've done anything and everything. I've loaded trucks. My hands were bleeding. Like, I've rolled cable. Like, no, it's better, you know, it's hard enough as it is, but make sure your career is in order and make sure you can get back where you, when you have to take detours, when, you know, child raising, you don't know what kind of kid you're going to get also. Is your kid going to be healthy? Is your kid going to have special needs? Is your kid just going to, you know, be able to go to school when the other kids go to school? Does your kid need, maybe I had to homeschool my son for a year because he wasn't learning to read at age 11, 12, you know, like it was, he's super smart, but super dyslexic and like all these things, you know, like one kid is not another kid. So just, I think girls have to be a little bit more aware of that if they are really driven to. But not everybody has the same dreams either, you know. Some people are perfectly content shooting Austrian movies for 5 million euro or 3 million euros and having a fulfilling career that way. It's not everyone needs to be the cinematographer in American cinematographer, you know. Like, it's different dreams, different paths. There's no right, there's no wrong.
Yeah.
All you can try to do is be kind and not be short-sighted or selfish. Don't step on other people to get to where you need to go. That's a very short-lived
Amen.
thing. You know, don't sell yourself under your value. You know, as women, I think sometimes we're very, I mean, we're very, I at least, I'm my worst critic. I can't watch a single movie I've shot. I can't. I
Wow.
think it's
And they're
terrible. Like,
beautiful.
every time I look at my work, I'm like, oh God, this could have been better. Oh God, this, oh no, this. And like, I, you know, and
Yeah, I
also
know
like
that.
submitting your work, putting your work out there. I'm so glad I have an agent who does that because I suck at self-promotion. You know, like it's 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 important, you know, but I know I can admit to myself that's like one of my big flaws, you know. It's like I don't do promotion. I'm terrible at it. I always feel like it's ridiculous. Like, people should just look at the work and realize, do they like it or not, you know, and judge based on my work. I don't understand why, you know, do I have to have an Instagram account and post, you know, every time I'm on set with some big crane, you know. I think it's so lame. Every time I look at my crew members and who are standing there, you know, like taking the casual shot of them next to the rig, I'm like, really, dude? Like, do you need that? But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's part of the game.
Oh, it would be so beautiful if we wouldn't need that. I fully understand this. Self-promoting can be so hard
Tiring,
and
right?
tiring. on the other hand, what I'm starting to realize, because I really need to do it, is that even though I do have an agent as an actor and all of that, but it is, people don't know you exist then, you know. Like, for example, if it's outside of the industry, as I'm also a coach, they just don't know that I do it then if I don't put myself out there, if I'm not self-promoting. You know, they don't know.
Yeah.
How should they
Yeah.
know? So,
That's
but you know
true,
what I
yeah.
loved is with all, we took a little bit detour now because, I mean, before we have skipped a big portion of all your career, which is amazing. And I know, Petra, you're like, it's a little bit, you know, it isn't. When we go and look at your career, we're like, I don't know what she's talking about. You've been working the whole time, but I do know what you mean. Obviously, it wasn't the films, but I would love for you to talk about how you, when you had this beautiful surprise, and when you're like you're pregnant, you're like, okay, like how were you able to work, and how did you decide to do it? Because you said film is really hard. I mean, that is hard work, too much. And also, I just want to put it out there. I've met your son, and you've done an amazing job, girl. And he is just, this is the beauty of whatever, if you're dyslexic or whatever you are, he has the most beautiful, biggest heart. And when you're around him, you calm down. I'm like, what amazing soul.
He's a cutie.
Yeah, I haven't yet met your daughter, so I'm sure she's amazing. But I just
You'll
want
meet
to
her.
say
You'll meet
that.
her. She's a
Yeah,
force of
but
nature.
oh, love it, like mommy. Yeah, but tell us, like, how did you pivot then there?
Well, okay, it was at a time like it couldn't have come at a more inconvenient time to my career. The pregnancy was a surprise, as you said, and I had literally just wrapped a very long shoot for Wes Craven. Um, I was shooting his movie that turned out to be like an epic shoot that wouldn't end and wouldn't end. And so I had been in Connecticut and on the East Coast for a long time, but I was actually living in Buenos Aires at the time. And so I flew back home to Buenos Aires after not having been home forever. And so yeah, so that happened. And then I decided once, I had decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I was like, okay, I can make this work. I just have to tell my agent because at the time scripts were flooding in for me because I had been on such a roll and people were happy with the job I was doing, and I kind of had a fresh approach to it because I didn't learn from anyone else. I just kind of made it up as I went along. Um, so I wrote an email to my agency and telling them I'm going to step away from feature films during my pregnancy because I don't know how it's going to go. I had no idea what pregnancy was going to be like. Yeah, I'm going to have a baby. I'm just going to do commercials for a while. So the second I sent that email, I realized, oh, I really can't do that. It's a shitty thing to write something like that for email. It's like breaking up with your boyfriend, but via text. So I was like, I grabbed the phone and I called my agent in LA, and the assistant answered, and I was like, so I was wondering if Craig has received my email. And in the background, as I was asking the question, I hear, he's a few hallways down from the assistant, but I could hear, fuck, fuck. Sorry, censored. You can beep it out.
No, that's fine. Keep leaving it in.
But so he had gotten the news, and he was trying very hard to be happy for me, but you could just tell it was like, oh my God, girl, like you could not have made a bigger mistake. Like, but we're so happy for you at the agency. You picked the curious time to do this. But yeah, so eventually they were wonderful and totally had my back, and have been the most loyal of agents. And so, yeah, so I decided to do only commercials during my pregnancy, which was so much fun because it was the golden age of commercials. There was so much money. We, were wined and dined and flown with plenty of days for prep, all these things that went away. You could even still fly your crew in. And we were shooting in all these beautiful countries. And, it was it was really the life, like always had a pool, always had healthy food, short shooting days. It was perfect. It was everything that, a movie isn't, because with the movie, you're like sitting in the production office at 2 a.m. And stressing, and schedules changed, and the commercials were all just like, let's have beautiful dinner here tonight and let's shoot something. I mean, it wasn't all that easy, but compared to like doing studio features in the US, shooting some commercials was like a great break. And it allowed me to have a really nice pregnancy. And I always figured I'm just gonna stop whenever it feels, like it's getting too much, because people were like, so how much longer are you shooting? Are you still gonna do this commercial? Can I still call you for that job? And I was like, sure, as long as I feel good. I mean, I never did any of the things I was supposed to do during pregnancy, like taking the class that teaches you how to give birth, or, like, I don't know. I mean, I did my ultrasounds, and I did just eat really healthy, but I didn't, buy diapers and learn how to do anything. I had no idea about kids. Nobody I knew had kids. So I was just like, okay, experiment.
You're like,
I'll do
is
it
there a
my way.
manual for this one too? Like, I'm good at reading manuals.
A really short one. Exactly. So, but then I realized pregnancy, I was very fortunate because I had both times around, I had such easy and, wonderful pregnancies. I didn't have morning sickness. I didn't get tired. I was maybe a little tired at the beginning, but like I didn't have any, like I was fitter than I ever was. I just got myself a personal trainer and I just worked out whenever, and they were like, oh, you can train until, you give birth. And so I was like this very well functioning machine with just like a protruding belly. But other than that, I didn't even like buy different clothes. I just unbuttoned my jeans. So it was just like, from time to time I would bump into the dolly handle, or like realize that my center of gravity was a little off. But I was shooting with Gia until like I was doing a commercial in Chile, literally in the Andes, with people from, I remember like a UPM was like feeling faint climbing the mountain, and I was just like and it was fine. But then I flew back to Buenos Aires, and that same night like went into labor. But yeah, but with both kids, I worked until the end because it was fun, and it was nicer than sitting in Buenos Aires fretting about, labor. So I figured I'll just keep busy and work, and same thing kind of after the birth. Like I was not meant to sit still for that long, and like I just took I just went back into commercials. So as long as I was breastfeeding, I only, like during pregnancies, both times, and while I was breastfeeding that first year, I only did commercials, which meant a lot of traveling. We were like literally the traveling circus. It was me, baby, toddler, nanny on, going everywhere on set and on scouts, and I would have a trailer on set for them, and that all that worked nicely as long as they were little. And then once they came to like kindergarten age, I had to rethink the whole concept. It wasn't as easy anymore. And once I went back into features also, I took an offer for a feature. It was so funny. That director contacted my agent. My agent was like, well, just take the call. It seems kind of random. It's an Austrian director, like doing a movie in Austria. And he was like, and he seems to think you're German. He was like, take the call. Let's see how it goes. And I remember, I was Skyping with the director, and I was, I was breastfeeding Rio, and I had the screen like that, like I never admitted that I had kids, and Rio was always so quiet, and he kept going like, and I was like, oh God, what is he thinking that this noise is?
You had no idea.
He had no idea, and then we started talking, and he talked about his kids, and then I admitted that I had kids, and he was like, so, how do you feel about shooting a movie in Europe? And I was like, oh, this could be a nice, step back on European soil. I had never worked in Austria. I left when I was still a kid, like when I was still a minor, essentially. And so, yeah, that got me into the kind of system here a little bit. And I never, I never stayed with Austrian movies, but it was just kind of, it gave me the opportunity to kind of move the kids to Europe and do things from here as a jumping base. And at the beginning, I still flew to the States all the time. And then came this wonderful era that we're still in where, you know, the States are struggling to keep work on US soil, which is very sad for my colleagues, but it's very fortunate for me.
It's fortunate for
You
us
know,
in Europe, right?
it's just,
It
yeah,
is.
exactly. It's just the industry is changing as it always does. Um, and tax incentives and, you know, bigger studios being built in Europe just meant that American productions can now, you know, shoot things in Europe that usually I would have to fly over for. And it just makes things so much easier because no time difference or very little time difference, you know, and just micromanaging or, you know, not even micromanaging. I'm getting better at that, but just managing the kids while I'm away shooting and then just seeing them on weekends if possible. But,
And
yeah.
for everyone in this industry, you guys are lucky because now Petra is going to be, it won't take long, and she's going to be diving full in. And when you dive full in, we know what that means. That is like fireworks. So we're all very lucky. This has been wonderful. This has been so beautiful. And
Yes, thank you
thank
guys.
you. Thank you for being so
Thank
open.
you for
And
listening to my story. And
It was a blessing.
it is a blessing. It's fascinating. And I think, as said, you have and are very successful. You're very talented. And also the way you then navigated with children, which we know as women, it isn't the easiest thing. It just isn't. And yeah, I'm very impressed. Thank you. Thank you for being so open about it, because I know there's someone out there, some woman, and who just needs to hear that, you know, there are ways. Yes, you say the optimal thing is, you know, get your career stable, da da da.
yeah.
But you guys, Petra, it happened to her, and
It
she's
happened to me
still,
out of the blue, and I had no idea. And you just deal with it, you know.
and she
And
dealt with
also,
it.
babies do bring the bread. Like there's a saying in Spanish, like that when you have someone you need to take care of, it's just like whenever you have a fire under your ass, you know, or like a gun against your head, you do things that you didn't think you were capable of. It's like some people only work with a deadline. It's a similar situation. You
Yes.
all of a sudden things become more urgent. You don't have the time to be vain or to be insecure. You just have to go for it. Do it, get it done. Close your eyes, get through it. Whatever it takes.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
has been
Thank
a
you
real
guys.
pleasure.
Oh.